All right, brilliant. Okay, guys, should we talk a bit more about our processes and what it's like day to day? I would say in the bump office, but that doesn't exist. In the virtual.
In the ether.
In the ether.
Yeah.
Is that what we're going to call it? What is a typical day like in the ether? We've got a lot of experience working with quite big organisations that have their processes as well that we have to be really aware of. So I guess let's start by talking about some of the things that we have to deal with, be really aware of every day to make sure that we're acting properly, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned big organisations. We work with a lot of big organisations that have red tape and their own processes that make life difficult sometimes, to put it mildly, for us at least, but they're there for a reason and we're kind of used to working with it. So this is things like not being able to access environments, people having full control over production environments, and we then have a sort of bit of a magic box that we don't really see what goes on inside. So if there's an issue, troubleshooting that can be a bit frustrating. We've sat on calls with like 20 different stakeholders all sort of trying to pass the blame and decide who's at fault or how to fix the issue. It's more frustrating, but we're certainly used to it, especially organizations that are heavily regulated and those that are very security conscious. But it's something we're used to. This is kind of typical day to day for us.
Yeah, and although it makes debugging for us harder, like they'll have experts, they'll have IT people, they'll have people on the call that know what they're doing, and we know how to talk their language and solve problems. Instead of them being bump solving problems, it's the team solving the problems.
Yeah, that's quite nice actually, sort of feeling part of a wider organisation in a way, everyone kind of working together, having insight into different things, and then hopefully coming together in a way that makes solving problems.
And we do that for every client we work with, right? Whether there is a huge existing infrastructure that we need to slot ourselves into, or whether maybe we are more of that infrastructure, if it's a particular smaller client. And then we integrate with teams, other dev teams even. That's how we operate as an agency, as we get in there and slot into other people's systems, and we're quite good at swapping and changing between those processes and systems with different clients.
And whilst we have our own internal way of working and processes. For example, we typically have a fork of the code for the client. So we like our clients to own their code and own their infrastructure. And that means that they're ultimately, we're there to advise and help them, but they're responsible for making sure it's secure, etc. But we can also then implement our own processes internally to follow things like code review and QA and any project management process we like to use as well. And the clients can be either exposed to those or shielded from them, depending on their appetite for that.
And their own processes, right?
And their own processes. Yeah. So a project we ran last year that I think is possibly the most successful project we've ever ran in terms of smoothness and just the general feeling with the client and happiness was one where the client was really keen to be involved. And so we ran in these sort of micro 1 week sprints. We'd have a kickoff at the start of the week and we'd say, here's what we're planning to achieve this week. We had our cards planned out in our project management tool, and the client would walk through those with us. We'd talk about the requirements, we'd make sure everyone was clear, any nuance or background that needed adding to the cards, we'd add those in. And then the following week, when we delivered those features, we would hand those over to the client, perhaps with a demo, and they'd have the opportunity to go away and test that. And it massively reduced this feedback loop, because we were getting feedback within days of changes, not this big bang feedback testing window right at the end of projects where you're then scrambling to fix all these issues just before go live. And it was a really collaborative way of working, and I felt everyone on the team thought it worked well and the client thought it worked well, and ultimately a really, really high quality product came out at the end as well. So we can do that. We can also not do that if clients would rather just give us the work and let us get on with it. We'll run our process internally, which might constitute 2 week sprint cycles, however we want to call it.
And does it make a difference whether the client's got, I guess, internal specialists, developers as well, whether we take that approach or more of the all-in-one build and then hand it over for testing? Do you think someone perhaps who's got more technical expertise would rather see things happen in those smaller sprints or stages rather than all in one go, or does it not really make a difference?
It's one of those things where if you have technical people within the client's organization, actually you can understand what's going on behind the scenes a bit better. So actually it is more valuable. There are some sprints where there's nothing visual to show anyone. So you go through and do a load of work. We're working loads behind the scenes, but actually there's no website at the end of it. Like there's nothing to say, hey, here's your new feature. So in that sort of scenario, actually it doesn't make sense to have that feedback loop quite so readily.
Yeah.
But if there's technical people on board, you can say, look, we've done all this, we've improved this, we've changed this, and that makes sense. So it really depends on who's involved and what involved they want to be and what we're building as well, I think.
And Callum mentioned the project management tooling. I mean, in those projects where we're using it and the clients are in there and we're in there, because of course we're all remote, that's how we're communicating, and clients can see what we're doing, even if actually they only care about delivery at the end of it. They do have some insight into what's going on, who's doing what, and can sort of see progress happening. And that seems to work really well for them. Like they like seeing that. It's also a really useful way of having everything all in one place where developers, project managers, clients, everyone can see, well, where are we at with this? And they can choose then to have as complicated or as simple a view of that. Is it just a card that's moving across, or is it this card with, hundreds of chat about this really fine-grained stuff? But you can choose whether you care about that as a client or a developer that we're working with.
Yeah. I think it's a really interesting approach, because a lot of agencies wouldn't let clients have that amount of insight into the minutiae or the really daily, hourly, minutely, even sometimes things that are going on. So I think it works really well. I think it saves a lot of uncertainty with the clients sometimes. If they don't hear from their developer for a week or even 6 weeks sometimes, I can understand from their point of view that'd be quite frustrating. So personally, I think it
helps with transparency, and ultimately it becomes just better for everybody. If we're all communicating better with clients and internally, if someone goes off sick, it's very easy for someone else to pick up and gather the context quite quickly. Jen, recently you've pioneered these project hubs that live within our project management tool that kind of have all the information, the key info in one place.
Exactly. It's so nice to have something to refer back to. I think, if you have lots of information in cards, and as Jason said, the threads can get a little bit out of hand.
And none of that kind of, we're building a feature and it's described in a PowerPoint we had sort of 3 months ago, going through emails trying to find that thing. No, here it is.
That also quite quickly become out of date, because as you're developing, scope changes or the approach changes, and so having that documented is challenging.
And that is intended to be live updated. If design files get updated, for example, they go straight in, replace the other one. So we all know what we're referring back to. But we also use the project management tool, not just for projects, but for our retainer clients and support clients too, don't we? So obviously they get treated in a slightly different way. It's less these big sprints, but our retainer clients tend to have a certain amount of hours or days dedicated to them for a month. We do as much as we can to sort of plan out when those are going to happen, what's going to happen on those days. But again, tasks are broken down into cards. They can see the work going on and contribute as much as they want to, or don't, in the same way.
I've heard clients complain, or not complain, but concerned about retainers saying, well, what if I don't need to use all this time each month? And I'm always assuring them that, don't worry, we'll find some way to use the time. The reality is we use these project management tools to create backlogs of tasks that are prioritized, and we can decide if this is low, medium, high priority. And if there's a quieter period, then some of those lower priority items can be ticked off. Also, it's a great opportunity to just have a way of sticking on top of like Umbraco upgrades,
the
security
proactive
patches,
stuff.
the proactive stuff. And that's a slightly different way of working then. So in those scenarios, we probably have a set couple of days each month where somebody is scheduled to then work on that client. For some, that might be spread out more across the month. For some, it might just be one fixed time each month. And that gives us that key touch point. We talk to clients maybe weekly or bi-weekly, depending on the client, and work through that list to decide the priorities, schedule it in. And I like to think that means we're constantly delivering value and people are constantly seeing improvements, even if they're not something that's visible. It could be an Umbraco upgrade, but you've got peace of mind that you're a bit more secure or slightly more performant or fewer bugs, that sort of thing.
And that's one of the things when we're working on a project as well, is we will quite often find things. We inherit a lot of code bases, right? So we quite often find things that are going to be a problem in the future, or that are slowing your site down. So there's always some proactive things we can be doing, and we quite often feed those back into the loop. So with retainer time, there's always important stuff to be doing.
We have a lead developer essentially for every client, don't we? But that doesn't mean that it's just that person that works on each account. There are times when we need to pull more resources in, but we also do a lot of peer reviews, don't we? So a new feature's built, new piece of code. Everyone shares the knowledge, checks it, makes suggestions, gets involved.
Yeah, from actually, for bigger, more complex features, from conception, generally we'll have like an architectural type chat where we plan out how we will attack the problem, and then from the implementation, that could be anybody on the team, not necessarily that lead developer on that project. They're just really there to sort of own the technical direction, I guess, of the project, and then ultimately ensure that what's being delivered is of a high standard and meets the client's needs. And then the peer review is a really important thing that a lot of people don't do. People will claim they do. Oh, we do code reviews, we do peer programming, and whilst we'd love to say we also do it 100% of the time, the reality is not the case. But certainly for those critical things where we've been building big features, big integrations, it's really helpful to have that second, third, fourth pair of eyes looking at something and saying, have we considered this, or why has it been approached in this way? Often people who've not had any context or exposure to the project are really helpful to come in, because they can point out something that might be blatantly obvious.
They can see the wood for the trees.
But but for us who've been working on it for a long time, we've never really considered something else. So
and that's also when we quite often get a lot of these additional things for the future, right? Is where things that need improvement over time is actually you get 3 sets of eyes on something, or 2 sets of eyes on something, and it's those little glimpses you get that make you go, oh, why are they doing it this way? Why does it work in this direction? Could it be better? And actually that's something we can then put back in and do in the future as well.
Exactly. Helps with knowledge sharing, helps with, I guess, steering approaches on other projects too. If we've seen something, oh, that worked really fantastically well on that project, let's do this type of thing again.
Okay, so I guess peer reviews, sharing knowledge and everything is one big advantage to hiring an agency, say, over a freelancer. What are the other kind of things that you guys would say are the advantages of an agency?
We've kind of touched on it already, but we were chatting about this earlier, and each developer's got an area of expertise, right? And when you pool an agency, you get several different bits of expertise, and we definitely all have different areas of expertise. And actually, by peer reviewing it, Jason will come back with me with a performance problem, right? You've seen someone, that is your area of expertise. So where we can all gain from each of those areas of expertise really helps.
And we do that, we don't silo developers on projects. Exactly. We're not sort of isolated teams that are assigned to clients. No, we do all look at what each other are doing so that we can make sure that we are sharing that expertise.
Well, when we're planning projects and scheduling, we're having these conversations like, who's the best person to do this work? If we've got a bit of time and there's someone available who hasn't had that much exposure to this, but we've got someone who we can pair them up with and they can learn a bunch from it, we'll do that because it helps our team grow, but it also helps expose another member of the team to that project and helps them support that client in the future. But sometimes we'll make the decision to say, this person is specialized in this certain skill set and that's what's needed, they're best placed, or actually this person has a lot of the project knowledge and it will just be much more effective to have that person work on the task. So we're having all those conversations on a weekly basis when we're planning things. Freelancers, I think all of us at some point have worked as freelancers, in fact. So we've all been there. And the way I describe freelancers is like these T-shaped developers, or comb-shaped, if you will, where there's broad breadth of specialisms, some slightly more or less than others, and generally a deep specialism in one specific area. And the benefit of an agency is you can pull lots of those people together and have all those different specialisms in that one place that you can call upon as you need. I'd also say, given that we're a small and quite agile team, where we need expert help on a certain area we don't have in-house, we're not trying to do things like SEO ourselves. We're calling upon the experts for that, and generally preferring people similar to us, where it's a small team, focused, we know we can talk to someone who is a genuine expert in their field, and it's not, hiding behind loads of account managers. I think our team gets quite visible in front of clients. It's not, we're not hiding people away.
Definitely. I think there's no issue with clients coming to you guys for questions. I mean, there's always a certain element of let's try not to disturb you when you're
When we're
deep in the zone. Exactly, in the zone. You can tell in the Slack if there's a little, icon that means do not disturb. But yeah, for the most part, that's a really positive thing.
When things go wrong, it makes a big difference having a team. Yeah, but like when the emergencies channel, when the notification comes in, and we get like 9 times out of 10, actually someone's already in there before I get to it. But that's the thing, isn't it? Like there's lots of people with eyes on, looking for when something goes wrong.
Yeah.
We're split between time zones as well, so we can respond to problems quickly.
Happened quite recently. There was an emergency for a site where, we encountered an Umbraco bug that it didn't make any sense at all. And Jason's there going, this doesn't make sense. I can't understand this. Why is this happening? And I came along and went, this doesn't make sense. Why is this happening? And we sat there together and we were able to bounce things off each other. And I went, oh, hold on, penny drop moment. There's this weird thing that I know about on this project that's been done. Go and change that. Okay, that fixes it. So we've got a way of mitigating it right now. We'll work on a solution going forward. But without that, someone could have spent a long time sitting there and just pulling their hair out trying to find a solution. Yeah.
And I guess when people are sort of looking for an agency, there are obviously a lot of people out there, aren't there? It's hard to sort of find exactly who you need, but there are certain clues that I suppose an agency will give you to let you know whether you're dealing with experts, essentially, or whether you're in a safe pair of hands. And I think some of the things that we do, we could talk about those, asking the right questions when you're first in a meeting or on a discovery call with your agency. Are they asking you about really getting into what you want to achieve? Not just, I'd like this new integration.
It's why you want
exactly. It's why you want it. What results are you hoping to get from this? Not just because it's pretty and shiny, but because you're trying to drive certain metrics. Your KPIs are X, Y, Z, aren't they?
And actually, I've had conversations in the past where a client's come forward and said, we want this. And we say, okay, well, why do you want that? And actually, you end up building something that's a better fit that the client didn't know existed or was possible. And just in having that conversation and asking the right questions, you can actually say, you know what? Well, this product already exists. You don't need to pay for us to do it.
A good supplier of any kind will challenge requirements.
Crucially, in that you build trust as well, because when the awful idea fails, and you're the ones that implemented it, you're the ones that get blamed, even if it wasn't your idea in the first place. So us being able to say, we think there's a better way of doing this, or there's a more sustainable way of doing this, or a more future-proof way of doing this.
Cheaper way is fine.
Embracing off-the-shelf solutions is very much a good thing, but a balance of all of those things, not someone who's always pushing you down a certain path, like someone that really wants to listen and work with you, I think is crucial ultimately. I also think transparency. It's something I think we do really well actually with clients, where maybe sometimes we're too honest about challenges we're facing, like, we've been pulling our hair out trying to fix this for a while, it's just not quite working. We're getting a couple of extra people to sit down and work out a way forward here. Some agencies would simply say, it's taking a little longer than expected. We're maybe giving a little bit more information, but I think it's in our nature ultimately that we like to share that, and we're quite proud of what we do, and we're not going to try and deliver a solution that's half-baked or doesn't meet that client's needs.
I think that's a really key point. There's no point rushing something through just because you're under pressure. If the time is available there to do it properly, do it reliably, do it so it's not going to have to be rolled back, that's got to be a massive priority, hasn't it?
And actually, quite recently, we had a situation where we couldn't solve a problem, and we went back to the client and said, look, we're having this trouble. And we ended up getting in touch with a third-party provider we managed to solve it between us.
Yes.
Whereas if you're too closed shell about that sort of things and just want to come across as, we're the experts, we can do this. We don't need your help.
Try and code yourself out of the problem.
That's it. And actually, that would have taken a huge chunk of time. It might not have worked fully as expected anyway, but by getting the third-party supplier involved, actually, we found a solution pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, I think another aspect that's quite important is knowing who you're working with. So in Bump's case, we've got a fairly strict rule about outsourcing, like unless we're relying on a third-party expert that is an area of expertise we don't have internally. We're very transparent about that, but we are not using freelancers or offshoring companies. Like the people you're dealing with are the people you speak to on a daily basis. We have our team based in the UK and Australia, and we know exactly where they are and who they are, and our clients work with them directly. That's what's important. No one's hidden behind a screen or an alias. They're all real people, exactly where we say they are, and we're not offshoring. And we put quite a lot of time and work into making sure we're hiring the best people for those jobs. Lots of Umbraco MVPs. We're investing in those people, making sure they are knowledgeable and as up to date as possible about the bleeding edge of the Umbraco ecosystem, and then crucially motivating people to do great work.
And every project is a different problem. So we have patterns of
challenge, not a problem. Challenge.
A challenge.
Is a problem a good thing?
A problem is a challenge. A problem is a good thing. But there are some sort of repeating patterns that with types of clients we have, but actually the vast majority of, it's a big spread, right? There tends to be the odd, we'll do a few hotel sites in a row kind of thing, but actually we're quite broad spread the way we work, and that means that there's interesting stuff for us to learn on every project. There's new things to learn and new individual problems for challenges for certain clients. And it just keeps it a bit fresh. And
generally, if a client's working with us, well, I shouldn't say this. Building websites is not all that hard, Sorry, but actually, what we spend most of our time doing is not building websites. There's much more complicated requirements that customers have. It's we need a website to sell gravel. Well, how hard is that, But actually, when the price of it changes based on the route that the truck takes to your house, avoiding low bridges and stuff, and all of that needs coding into the website.
And inaccuracies in the measuring equipment, so there's got a 10% buffer either way, and depending on the crushing plant that it's coming from, the gravel will be a different size, so you need different amounts to cover the same surface area. Like, this is an incredibly technically complex, entirely dull, honestly. Really
dull subject matter. Exciting
but a really
execution.
exciting technical problem. Technical challenge.
And actually, when you use it as a user, there's a few clicky buttons of I want this gravel delivered here, and that's it. But actually, all this stuff going on behind the scenes.
For a few clicky buttons. I mean, really. Never a dull day. Always a good problem.
Always.
Yeah. Okay.